This is NTV.
Good evening. Decision 2022 continues, and today we have special focus. It is now down to 5 days to the general election, and as Kenyans prepare to go to the polls, there is an agenda that cannot be ignored, and that is on gender. More specifically, the place of women in elections and politics. Is the two-thirds gender rule entrenched in the Constitution just a pipe dream, or is it in the pipeline with the hope of more women representation and participation in elective politics? Well, tonight's Nation Leadership Forum focuses on this with a panel of 3 women and 1 man. So why is a man moderating this? Well, perhaps it is to exemplify the need for mind shift and the inclusion of women in politics and leadership. As you follow the conversation, the hashtag is NMG Leadership Forum and Nita Tokelezea, and would like to appreciate the effort and facilitation of this conversation by the UN Women. And so let's meet the panel now. And Daisy Amdanyi on my right, the Executive Director of Crown Trust, and she has some news to break while on this show, and I'm privileged to be the one to do that. That's quite the scoop. Thank you. And Thank you. Doris Nasieku on my left here, National Coordinator of the Women Peace Committee Network here in Kenya, and Naitore Nyamo, she's the head of Physicians for Human Rights, and Irungu Houghton, he'll be joining us from home. He's Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya, and I believe he can hear me now. You could give us a thumbs up for that as we continue. Sir, karibu. Wazi, sawa, kaende. So let's start this just down the panel. I'll start with you, Naitore. And there is a claim that women have a majority power of vote. Is this true? Because the perception comes from the fact that there are more women in Kenya, going by the latest figures, than there are men, or female than there are male. Do you agree with this perception?
For that, we have the numbers in terms of the women, and the population and the figures and the data allude to that. But now the big question is when it comes to the power for voting. How do we vote as women, and what informs us to vote? And whom do we vote for? Because of this being majority is not sufficient to ensure that maybe we have more women in representation. It's not sufficient to ensure that if Daisy is running today and me as a woman, I'm going to directly vote for her. There are numerous other barriers that dictate whom we vote for, regardless of our gender. So just being the majority in the country is not sufficient, or does not automatically indicate that then we'll have more women in representation. All
right, I'll stop you at that as we get into the factors that affect this participation and even representation in public office. Doris, do you agree with this perception that there's majority in terms of the population of women, so that should, translate to more women representation in Kenya?
I echo her sentiments that yes, we have the numbers, but we don't have the empowered perspective in terms of voting as women in Kenya. As you can see, making political decisions in maybe rural women has a very big impact on showing that we are actually not ready to make those decisions.
Okay, Daisy, I know you're waiting to jump on this one because you're very vocal at this particular point where people say, "Nataka, mpewe, positions, but your majority, or so it is thought. Why not support your own?"
Well, because that's not entirely why people make political decisions. Political decisions are made through various processes and factors. One of them is that in Kenya, we've seen over the years that elections are decided on tribal basis. So there's a lot of ethnic balkanization. And tribes, being mainly patriarchal, do not actually view women as leaders. When you look at the hierarchy of women within tribe, they rank very lowly. The other issue is resources. We know that for the emergence of a candidature, for visibility, And unfortunately, even in terms of being able to mobilize the necessary votes, it takes resources. Now, women have been excluded, not just politically, they've been economically excluded, and they've been culturally excluded. So they don't have access to the kind of resources, the kind of disposable resources that you actually need for the emergence of candidature, political candidature. Also, by being politically marginalized, they don't have the necessary political capital. So all these things are things that need to be built, which is why affirmative action is one of the necessary pathways to encourage the emergence of women leaders. So I think it's not enough to blame women as having the numbers, but failing to vote for their own, because that's not why people vote. People don't vote along those kind of lines. There are many intricacies to political, to building, your political capital and the emergence of political leadership.
All right, and last but definitely not least in this conversation, because I have to say not least because he comes in last in his contribution for the first question. You bring up a good point there, affirmative action. Irongo, from where you sit, there has as well been the pushback in as much as there's affirmative action, then the boy child will be left out. Yes, we want to include women in leadership, include women in education, include women in different sectors. Do you hold the same worry or concern that then there shouldn't be as much, because we will then leave the boy child or the male gender disenfranchised?
No, I think the premise is a false one. We don't have to disadvantage one gender in order to advantage the other. The boy child doesn't have to lose out just because we're focusing on the girl child. We have to raise all children. And I think nowhere is it clearer in our constitution than in Article 27, where it says that all people must enjoy full full rights and freedoms under our constitution. The reason why we focus on women and girls is because they are disproportionately excluded from resources, from political office, and the data is still very clear. Despite 20 years of gender sensitization, we have seen, women still have, I think, 26%, 23% less in terms of salaries than men. 67% of our population is still disadvantaged because of their gender. So I think we have to look at this from a point of view of trying to bring gender parity to all areas of our country. And if we do not accelerate this, we're not going to see this, according to the statisticians, until 2069. That is at least 40 years from now.
All right, let me throw in another figure here. Much as from the 47.5 million, Kenyans that, were confirmed by the 2019 census, 24.5 million female, 23.5 million male. So just to break down these numbers, of course, that doesn't mean this is necessarily people of voting age. It is just the gender. But also, there's another figure here, and this was made apparent by the IEBC, that 22.1 million voters have on the register, out of which it's 49.12% who are women. So what explains this issue of participation in election directly? The numbers here, yes, much as there, you could think that generally there's more women than men in Kenya, then in the number of registered voters, is there apathy, is there intimidation?
I think that you've got to look at some of the barriers that women face. There are certain cultures that don't even give women the right to even keep their own voters' cards, And so you need permission to go and register as a voter. Voter education is not reaching down to many of these women. Of course, then there is the issue of intimidation, also not understanding the value of your vote or the importance of your vote. So there are very many factors. So it's not just the one thing. But you will find in many of the rural areas, there is these structures that women are dictated to on how they are going to vote and how they are going to participate. So if your husband or your family or, is the patriarch of the family gives direction about certain things, whether it is voter registration or whether it is how people are going to vote, you are supposed to follow those instructions. We also know that there are certain parts of this country where it is negotiated democracy. So the people don't even get to decide. It is elders who sit together and determine which clan will get what. Now, in those kind of cultures, the value of the woman is very, very low. So their votes are not even considered as worthy, because once the elders have decided who gets which seat, it's almost as a done deal. Okay. So they are the ones actually who call the shots. And it's actually more common than you would think, you know. These kind of practices also affect women. So these are social-cultural barriers that women have to contend with.
Okay, you've mentioned voter education, sensitization, and Doris, as a leader or coordinator of the Women Peace Network here in Kenya, Committee Network here in Kenya, I mean, even as you go to the ground to reach the people, is it true that, you know, it's not getting to the women? Is it because they don't have time, they're busy fending for their families? Or it's not getting to them as much as it is to the men?
We're having situations where that in Kenya, as much as you want to approach the grassroots women, you find that their availability to come for maybe voter education or maybe the sensitization meetings, they are not available. So you'll find that most of these meetings, men are there making decisions on behalf of women. You'll find that when we have peace meetings or when we have sensitization meetings, most of the times women are engaged in their activities. In the grassroots settings or in the community settings, you'll find that the woman is very busy. Most of the times fending for the family and everything, and the man is mostly available for these meetings. So it doesn't bring, the meetings don't bring out the results that we need in terms of gender.
And for you, Naitori, in terms of your experience as you engage the women in voter education, is that the same? It's not reaching them? Because it's, I mean, someone might say, watching might say, well, the men also have things to do. They've shown up to learn what matters to them in terms of elections and what have you. I mean, it's not that it's only the women who are fending for their families.
Yeah, you know, Mark, patriarchy is a system, yeah? It's a system and you can be socialized. The socialization plays a huge role, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. And how you're socialized will impact the kind of decisions that you're going to make. And that's what happens more often or not for women. Because yes, we've done voter education, you need to vote, but now because of the significant barriers that women face, even just to actualize their right to vote or not to vote, are numerous. And the socialization gets into you such that you see that this person, this woman who is vying, you start questioning who is she, yeah? Her roles are in the private sphere because we've delineated the public and the private sphere. And the women have been meant to stay in their private spheres, yeah? Whereby electoral politics positions are reserved for men. And that's the socialization that's there. So that even if you do voter education, by the time you change those societal attitudes, it takes a lengthy period of time. What I'm saying is that we've made strides, but we are not yet there. So it would be very unfair to say that women don't vote for other women just because they are the majority registered voters. We need to look at other existing barriers that make women make that decision on whom to vote for, where to vote for, and how to vote for. Okay. And those barriers even increase if you as a woman decide to vie for a position. Because first of all, who are the majority of the leaders of the Council of Elders? Who are going, because in most societies or tribes, you need the go-ahead from them. Who is going to crown you and give you the go-ahead and the blessings that you as a woman, you can vie? How do you even approach this Council of Elders just to share your vision as a woman who wants to vie? So there are all these complexities in as far as voting and actualizing that right for women.
Irongo, as you follow this conversation, I want to steal from one of the things that Amnesty International Kenya has posted in anticipation for this conversation, and in terms of including women in the participation. And one of the factors that affect women's political participation you've cited is that the long wait times to vote and long distances to the polling stations. But men also face the same. Are you saying there should be some form of preferential treatment? And Daisy nods yes. You answer first.
No, I think we have to be sensitive to the different realities that women and men face. I mean, women in many cases, particularly rural communities, they will have what they call a triple burden. They will be responsible for production. They will also have reproductive responsibilities. They will be caring for the family, and for the man who is also going to vote, they will probably be making his meal on return. So their timing is not as as flexible as many of the men have, and this has been proved in many studies. And I think that's one of the challenges we've got. But the other thing, of course, is for people who want to get up early and be on the front of the queue, that means walking to the polling station probably in the middle of the night, and the darkness and the involvement potentially of criminal elements will impact differently on men than women. Now, I think it's important just to say that all men and women and intersex persons have the right to vote, and therefore we must make it easy for them to vote, convenient for them to vote, so that everybody can exercise this sacred historic duty that we will all, hopefully, those of us who are registered, be able to exercise on August the 9th. So this is really critical, understanding the background of men and women.
What's your experience as Amnesty International Kenya as you facilitate, voter education, sensitization, and reaching the masses, when it's messaging, putting the message forward, and even how it is received?
Yeah. So over the last 7 months, Mark, we've been operating in about 23 to 25 sub-counties, 69 wards, and we chose the areas that were particularly identified as hotspots. We wanted to make sure that civic education was available for both men and women in those communities. And one of the things that showed up really for us is just how involved, how interested women are in the things that matter to their communities, to their families, and to themselves. Reproductive health rights was a big issue there, the right to safe abortion, how do we respond to teenage pregnancies. Women are asking these questions. They want leaders that are able to respond to these kind of issues. They are concerned about the rising cost of living, the cost of food and fuel. And these are not just women issues, these are national issues that women are now articulating. And I have no doubt that come August the 9th, we will see women really playing a decisive factor. And, the polls that we've seen over the last 4 to 5 days basically tell us that a large number of the undecided voters at the moment are women. And if they exercise their right to vote and vote in candidates, both male and female, that have a gendered agenda, we could see a dramatic change in the way that public policy and government is exercised for us all.
As we make this diagnosis, we only have a couple of minutes before we take a break, come back. I just want real quick answers from the panel here. It must be some good news, or at least change of fortunes in terms of participation of women, that we have more running mates who are actually women in the race to 2022.
I think that's something that we're celebrating. Our efforts are paying off despite the lack of the implementation of the 2/3 gender principle. I think that one of the things that may have triggered that kind of a response is CJ Maraga's advisory for the dissolution of parliament. For the longest time in Kenya, there has been no political cost to shortchanging women. So women have been subjected to empty promises since independence. But now, suddenly, there was the real threat of a total shutdown, because if you dissolve parliament, you've dissolved government, essentially, because government is not really going to function without functioning parliament. So I really do think that this was a kind of a wake-up call to the political class. Then there was the Katiba Institute judgment that required all political parties participating in the 2022 general election to submit lists that comply with the 2/3 gender principle, and IBC was to reject lists that do not. In fact, that order was stayed a day before the deadline. As a result, political parties were very proactive in ensuring that more women got onto the ballot. We found there are political parties that made decisions to give women direct tickets. We have 4 presidential candidates, 3 of whom have female running mates. We have 58 governor running mates. We do have, I think, 2 of them that are female candidates. And we have 227 women running for National Assembly, 44 women running for Senate, and I think 27, I'm not sure about that number, women running for governors. So that is it's an impressive number. We have an unprecedented number of women on the ballot, and we have hundreds of MCAs running on dual gender seats. Yes. So that is a marked improvement.
Quick response from you on how the situation is changing. Good news?
Yes, it is good news to us.
Okay.
It is a confirmation that we will be at a better place more than we were in 2017 in terms of gender representation.
Naitore?
The Constitution is a living document. The fact that Article 27 provides for freedom from discrimination and equality, and that's where we have the 2/3 gender principle, is a big stride, and that's why we are seeing all these progressive appointments in elective positions, appointed positions, and the number of running mates also increasing. So by all means, we'll continue advocating for having such provisions in the law. Implementation might take long, but that's always a good step. Have it in law as a first step.
All right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're wrapping it up, but we're not. We're just getting started. Taking a break. I'll be back shortly with this NMG Leadership Forum, and the focus is on women participation in elections and in leadership, the realities and the possibilities and the hope for Kenya with 5 days to the election. Irongo Houghton, I've not left you out. We'll be back with more contribution from your end in a bit. Stay with us.
Today, Kenya is 59 years old. 59 years after independence, millions struggle to find food. Millions struggle to find water. Hundreds of thousands cannot find a health facility for basic treatment. And thousands of our children are not in school. 59 years after independence, millions of Kenyans live in shacks and makeshift structures, while 10 million Kenyans struggle to make 100 shillings, maybe 200 shillings on a good day. Others earn jail time or fines because our economic system is rigged against small people. You and I know that something radically different must be done to pull ourselves out of this economic malfunction. But this is what should scare you, that you are a payslip away from poverty, that you are a job loss away from losing your home, that you are one illness away from losing all your savings. I am not promising you perfection, but I am promising you and your children equal opportunity, a level playing field to dream, and a clear path to living that dream. Do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on your children. In their eyes, I may be the son of nobody, but I promise to make Kenya the country of everybody.
Nilianza kukadi kwa sababu nilikuwa sina kipato yoyote, na nilipofika Kitale Club wakati fulani moja kulikuwa na competition na nikaambiwa nikuje nijaribu. Kazi ya ukedi imenisaidia kwa maisha, ambapo tangu nianze mpaka sasa penye nimefika imenisaidia kusomesha watoto, kupata chakula ninapata, na ambapo kazi ikirudi chini mimi bado narudi kwa barabara kuendesha pikipiki. Tangu nianze kukadi, ile experience yenye mimi nimepata ni ile experience ya kucheza golf na experience ya kufunza golf. Hapo ndio nafurahia. Nikipata mgeni nifunze apate kujua kucheza golf.
Check it. Let's talk about banking. Or let's talk about dreams and goals. Your dreams, your goals.
If you're like Louise, you value doing biz with ease. Or maybe you're like Dan, a family man with a plan. At Diamond Trust Bank, it starts with one dream, one goal, one deposit, and one transaction. Pamoja, let's make it happen. So don't just bank with us, bank on us.
Let's get straight to it, ready for whatever, we gon' ride. Line them up, let's go toe to toe, tell them pick a side. Put in work, we don't play no games, watch him running high. Savage mode, we gon' keep it G, yeah, you know.
Dave, this line is not going down, and you're burning up. But I'll sort you out, my friend. See that barrier? Go for it. Yeah.
Bing bang bing, bum bum. Good night, gentle toes. Good night, soft cheeks. It's time to sleep. Peaceful nights start with skin protection. A new Pampers Pants with a touch of olive oil offers double skin protection. Its absorbent layers lock wetness away, and its moisturizing lotion with olive oil keeps your baby skin protected all night. New Pampers Pants, double skin protection for peaceful nights.
Kenya Revenue Authority would like to remind all VAT-registered taxpayers to upgrade their ETR in order to enjoy the following. 1. Faster processing of VAT refunds. 2. Simplified VAT return filing. 3. A fair business environment. 4. Ability to verify the validity of the invoice. And 5. Automated activation of the ETR. What's more, the upgraded ETRs are available in 4 categories suitable for all businesses. Visit www.kra.go.ke for the approved list of ETR suppliers. Kenya Revenue Authority. Tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
Ndugu wa Kenya, nawaomba kwa unyenyekevu na kwa heshima, kwa sababu muda wa kupiga kura umewadia. Tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8, mkifika kwenye vituo vya kupigia kura, naomba kura zenu kama rais wa 5 wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Hasla ni wetu, ni wetu, ni wetu. Hasla ni wetu, ni wetu, ni wetu.
The discussion continues. Yes, Naitore, we can have this conversation, or whatever question you had for me, you can throw it at me. Yes, the women participation in leadership and elections, the conversation that the Nation Leadership Forum is dedicating today with 5 days to the election. And we have Daisy Mdani from the Crown Trust, Doris Nasieku from the Women Peace Committee Network, Naitore Nyamo, from the head of Physicians for Human Rights, and Irungu Houghton, the Executive Director for Amnesty International Kenya. And before we took a break, there's a question I had, and Daisy was really nodding, and I want to have the ladies to respond to this. Are you talking about giving preferential treatment? When you talk about, oh, the lines are long for the women to queue during election day, yet men are also in line the whole day or most part of the day, are we calling for preferential treatment for women?
Well, let's not call it preferential treatment. What we're calling for is for a system that actually recognizes the different roles that men and women play. Okay. Because while indeed the men are standing in line all day, but when they get home, they want to come and find a meal cooked. Now that meal is not going to be cooked if both husband and wife are in the line standing together. So we want that's why we talk about gendered approaches in terms of, even for the electoral management body, that they need to take the gendered aspects of our community into consideration and have a gender checklist that recognizes that women have certain roles that they play outside of men. We've got women with babies, okay? And you saw, and of course they've been giving those preferential treatments, and we've seen from the past 2 elections how now babies are hired out so that you can get ahead on the queue. Yeah. But it's true. So, you know, your childcare duties, pregnant women, the elderly, the disabled, and also for women. In some countries, the electoral management body will actually have separate lines for women so that they can just, you know, go in, vote quickly, and then go and get on with their daily duties. Okay. So that's what we're calling for. We're calling for a system that actually takes into recognition the different roles that men and women play within the community. The issue of safety and security, how far is it? You know, also, you know, weather is unpredictable. Safety and security, all those things have to be taken into consideration. I know that one of the things that the IEBC have done is that they've limited the number of people per polling station so that the lines can move faster. Mm-hmm. However, even within that context, I think the maximum is 700 people per polling station, per polling stream. So even within that context, if you're standing on a line of 100 people, it'll take you time. So for women, pregnant women, women with children, persons with disability, I think we are saying that we need the recognition that they do have other responsibilities and they just can't hang around waiting to vote together.
And I'll give Doris and Naitore an opportunity to respond to this, whether it's preferential treatment. Irongo, you've participated in elections, you've seen how it plays out. Dare someone try to, you know, jump the line? You know the furor that, you know, faces them. Are we advising, you know, women to come and say, hey, tupe fursa tupige kura? Because you know what the response will be at the polling station.
Yeah, but I think I wouldn't want to reduce the challenges that women have in terms of voting to the voting line. I think the other big challenge is, because you know, women are resilient. I mean, they carry, many rural women carry you know, weight that is almost their own weight in terms of firewood or in terms of water and so on. So it's not that they're physically unable to stand alongside men. I think one of the other challenges that we should discuss really is the absence of candidates that have a pro-women's empowerment, pro-gender justice, pro-gender equality agenda. And that would make women want to come out. You know, I think one of the things that we have to, you know, bring this back to is what are the ideas, what are the policy ideas that candidates are proposing, and are they ideas that women resonate with? And I think that's what will bring lots of women out on August the 9th, and is really this, you know, very pronounced, you know, agenda.
And they will brave the queues and what have you, the weather, whether it's raining, given the weather right now, cold. You bring a good point there, the absence of candidates that are pro-women. What is your response to this in terms of when people hear even the thought of giving way to the woman to vote? For some, it will be something else.
I think as Kenyans, we should change our mindset, because elections and voting day processes are mostly considered rough. You'll find pushing and shoving and harassment of women, and sometimes that also impacts on the availability of women to come and queue. Because when when the process is so rough and you're pushed and you have to wait on the line for too long, and you have other responsibilities at home, and maybe the distance. Also, the distance of the polling station from your home, mostly for rural women, it impacts so much on women turnout during the voting day. Okay,
Naitore, your view of this and experience?
Yeah, the entire electoral process in Kenya, it's very hostile for women, whether you're voting, whether you're vying, whichever role that you play. If you remember, during some by-election, I think last year, one of the IEBC officials was from Frogmat. She was being sexually harassed by people who wanted her to, I mean, during the entire electoral process. So it's a very hostile environment for women. And come the, excuse me, come the voting day, I think what we need, it should not be a system that's unfair, but let's have a system that allows everyone to participate in the process in a free and fair process. There are those aspects that impact how I'm going to vote and where I'm going to vote, because honestly, if I'll stay in the line from 5 a.m. up to 4 p.m., it beats the purpose of me voting, yeah, regardless of whether I'm a man or a woman. But can we have specific systems that, and these are very easy things that the electoral body can put in place.
Yes.
Like, I mean, why don't you have numerous stations in a polling station to ensure people vote? They don't have to stay there for 5 hours.
Okay.
Make sure the KIMS kit or whatever we are using is working. Make sure that those ballot papers are in place at the right time, so that if someone wants to vote early, they can come in at 5 a.m. when the station is being open.
And there are no delays.
1 hour, yeah, and there are no delays.
And
yes.
apologies for the noise just next to us outside Nation Center. I'm sure it's a vehicle from the campaign trail. They only have 2 days to go. Actually, I think they've passed their time, but they have to mint as much time as they have left for the campaigns to continue. And I feel for the neighborhoods where people are having to listen to that throughout the day and sometimes into the night. But Irungu, if you can hear me, besides this, the reggaeton that is in the background, Chemoget tweets as he listens here and follows a conversation, and he says, or she says, Chemoget says basically, with 3 days left, we should be analyzing what these candidates' manifestos are and not this moshene. These can be revisited after all is done and dusted. What does this say to you about the cultural, societal attitudes to this issue?
Mark, is that directed to me?
Oh, sorry, I guess it's the music that's a bit loud, but someone here watching says, instead of conversing about, women issues in politics and in elective politics, we should be talking about the manifestos. This is someone following this conversation. What does it say to you about the attitude surrounding, in the environment for Kenya's leadership?
I mean, I think I do agree that we need to be discussing manifestos, but we need to discuss manifestos from a gender perspective. We need to be asking, do the candidates have a clear understanding of their constituency, the nation or the constituency or the county? Do they know what the impact of agricultural proposals will have on women and men separately? Because it's not the same thing. I mean, I think that's the lie that patriarchy creates, that somehow policies that are gender neutral or gender blind, that they don't have an impact, a differential impact on men and women. So we do have to discuss ideas, we have to discuss issues and approaches. And teenage pregnancies, or for example, as we learned 3 weeks ago, something like 5,500 women were raped in the capital city of the country. That's an election issue. I think it has to be an election issue. We need to bring these conversations to bear, and we need to be asking male and female candidates the same question. How do you make this country safer? How do you make this country more equal under the law? And how do we make sure that this country is more responsive to both men and women? And I think that's the challenge that is before us. I mean, just to give you an example, over the last, I guess the last week or so, Amnesty has received 2 protection-related issues. One was from a female deputy governor who is being hunted down by her governor and his thugs. And we've received another case of, the MCA candidate for Mlango Kubwa, Susan Makungu, whose husband has been missing for several days now, and it's all election related. So, I think any way you look at it, we have to ask the question, how do we make our electoral politics much safer, much more inclusive for women as well?
All right. Let me take a quick break here at this point because of the noise that's outside. It might be hard to follow the conversation. But when we come back, I want to give us time enough to talk about the actual threats that are facing the, women leaders or candidates, as well as even voters, and the protocols that we can suggest that they can follow leading up to the election day and on the day and after, as even Irungu has brought up cases that they have faced as Amnesty International. So NMG Leadership Forum talking about the women representation and participation in our leadership. We'll continue, that conversation will continue. But someone else says here, I just want to see the body language and response. Lubega Salim, but always, women like easy things, but not pulling the rope every time and then. So I'll leave it at that. You see the reactions there and the faces. We take a quick break, give time for this campaign vehicle outside to pass, and we'll be back shortly.
Uh-oh, Donna. You've got places to be, and this chump has forgotten something. But he must trust you, leaving you with his basket. Time to take matters into your own hands. Grab that papaya. Now, make a mess of it.
Bing bang bing, bing bing bang, bum bum bang, bing bang bing, bum bum.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri, and I'm here to really thank you for buying this unique property, the great Oasis Garden. You have done the Maram Road, you have done the subdivision, and now your individual title is ready. We are now processing title deeds for phase 2, just next to the proposed biggest family entertainment center, the GMC, directly opposite this Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This particular road you see is Nanyuki Lumuruti and is proposed for tarmacking. Call us on 0790 300 300.
Running a business online or on social media? Haya basi, mteja wako amekupigia na anataka bidhaa kutoka duka yako ya social media. Tayari mmekubaliana price ya bidhaa. Step ya pili ni kumtumia pay link ya ChapaPay kulipia. Sasa mteja wako akireceive link ya kulipia ataweka details zake alafu alipe. Hiyo payment itaingia direct kwa bank account yako with 100% security. All you have to do now is to deliver the items to your customer and the deal is done. Running a business online or on social media? Receive more customers by accepting online card payments. Call 0703 027 000 or visit the nearest branch to sign up for free.
Kenya Revenue Authority would like to remind all VAT registered taxpayers to upgrade their ETR in order to enjoy the following: 1. Faster processing of VAT refunds. 2. Simplified VAT return filing. 3. A fair business environment. 4. Ability to verify the validity of the invoice. And 5. Automated activation of the ETR. What's more, the upgraded ETRs are available in 4 categories suitable for all businesses. Visit www.kra.go.ke for the approved list of ETR suppliers. Kenya Revenue Authority. Tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
Nenenga kila mundu kile anadai kubai itema ikio vivi atanama ya ofrai kaketa wakachazi kunea musembi muya au kena twele tunaidi mama brother.
Do not hold back in any situation. Eno gets to work on the 6 symptoms of heartburn fast.
You do know you said all of that out loud, right?
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Let's get straight to it. Ready for whatever. We gon' ride. Line them up. Let's go toe to toe. Tell them pick a side. Put in work. We don't play no games. Watch him running high. Savage mode. We gon' keep it G. Yeah, you know.
Dave, this line is not going down, and you're burning up. But I'll sort you out, my friend. See that barrier? Go for it. Yeah.
Bing bang bing, bum bum.
Red Bull gives you wings.
This is NTV.
tonight. High Court directs IEBC to provide a manual register to complement the electronic one in the upcoming general election.
The presiding officer shall authorize use of a complementary mechanisms.
Even as the Commission says it is ready to comply. Also tonight,
tunataka watu waaminifu, watu ambao tutaweza kutembea na wao kwa njia ya amani.
no let up in the war of words between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, as Ruto cries foul, accusing the state of frustrating his presidential bid.
The president met people in Nakuru, and the outcome of that meeting is not good for our country.
Plus,
there is no doubt that the offences committed are very serious and carry a heavy penalty.
It's 100 years in jail for a former director of a children's home convicted of child defilement charges. And on tonight's special feature, The Grand Fallout, Kennedy Mureithi takes a look at the messy political divorce between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto.
Since the pandemic, all mums know to be cautious of the many kinds of everyday germs that spread easily. Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Dettol antibacterial soap 60 grams is now 50 shillings.
What blue is blue? Police blue? Sky blue? Monday blue?
Take a deep inhale as you bring your hands up to the sky.
I feel so at one here. I should bring this zen into my house.
When it comes to all things paint, we've got you covered. We know paint. Duracoat, ask the experts.
Welcome back to the conversation on NMG Leadership Forum, and it is about women participation and representation in leadership. And I want us to get in this last part, we have 16 minutes, so Doris, we'll start with the actual threat. First of all, not just to the electorate, and even as we get to the point of how to help women if they're faced with any threat during this process. But for you, the candidate, and in your experience, what you have seen or heard that is happening, facing these candidates, beyond the challenges of just being women, but now what is surmounted on them?
There are very many threats women candidates face. One that is always covered up and goes on incognito is the sexualization of women representation. You find that for you to be acceptable in a political party or under one governor's lineup, you have to accept to his sexual advances. For you to be eligible for nomination, you have to be to accept the sexual advances. So I find that it's demeaning to women, and I find that it's actually crippling our efforts in terms of meaningful participation of women and meaningful inclusion of women, because it should be about what is in your brain and not what is under
the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And Irungu Houghton, I'd like to bring you here in on this one because it's been mentioned by the panelists here in studio. I'm told that we've lost Irungu. Let's solve that. As we do so, the point that I was actually going to throw at him is something that has come from the panel, and I really want us to look at this critically. It is said culturally in many homesteads that the man of the home decides kwa hii nyumba kura ni kwa so and so. But critically looking at it, kura ni siri yako, kura yako siri yako. When you go to the ballot, you might actually say sawa mzee, tunajua tunapigia nani kura. But when you get to the ballot, it's your secret. So you can choose for yourself. So it's not quite true that they're forced by their husbands or the leader of the home on what direction to vote. I'll throw it to you, Naitori.
Yes. Let me say this. You know, voting, when someone has authority over you, you can do whatever they say. It doesn't matter that you'll go to that ballot box alone or that thing that they put for you to vote alone. Because of how you've been requested to vote, not requested, asked to vote, you will. Even if there's no one who is there with you, because of that socialization and because the nuances around that and the fact that it's been said in this house, this is the way that we are going to vote, then that's how you're going to vote. You don't need like someone to be watching over you to obey that command, because in instances where there is that male figure as the head, that person who makes the decision is a male figure in that particular house, regardless of what those decisions are, then everyone in that homestead should, by all means, abide by that.
Naitori, just from what Doris has said, that it's unfortunate, some candidates are forced into situations for them to actually ascend to power, but we should look at women as people who have something on their brains, not, under the belt. But what it sounds like, forgive me if I'm wrong, is that, women don't have their own will, that they can stand for their own decision.
No, not at all, Mark. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are other factors that are at play. I'm not saying, we are not having this discussion to portray women as just as victims. Okay. That's not the point.
All right, as we sort, and I'm not breaking you, I'm not cutting you short because of the point you're bringing up. It's just, as we sort that microphone, I'll throw it to Daisy on this point. Women have something to offer, they have brains, it shouldn't be looked at, objectifying of women. But then when we talk about, in their defense, that the man of the home, directs and dictates, tunapiga kura kwa, ichama ama uyu candidate. I mean, you have your own mind to make up. You can make your own mind.
Okay, I think we also have to understand the dynamics, some of the cultural dynamics. For some of these women, there are severe consequences in exercising your own free will. We have had several cases where even just in primary processes, just because a spouse, a wife, decided to have her allegiance elsewhere, she has been beaten thoroughly.
But if she chooses, just the same way as youth sometimes say, nitapokea pesa, the money that they're given at campaigns.
I don't say that.
But mina jua vile nitapiga kura. No, just as some youth say,
yes.
Nitapokea pesa sawa, we later, lakini najua vile mimi nitapiga kura.
You see, you also don't understand the power relations, because it's about power dynamics. This is somebody with authority over you. And for there to be peace, and peace for you, and just for you to have that comfort of the home, you must obey. So there's even if you look like you may be suspecting. I'll give you, by the way, true story, happened maybe 2 weeks ago. We are being bombarded, like now we've been bombarded by, campaign noise. So you've got all these songs coming along. So you've got a song for this coalition, you have a song for this candidate.
Don't sing it, but
and maybe you're humming it along. This man came and found his wife singing a jingle for a certain coalition, which he does not support. She was beaten up thoroughly until she lost her teeth. I mean, it's that serious. So you see, there's even that thing of, there might be even a suspicion that I didn't vote the way I was instructed, because in fact, when if let's say in a certain area where, you know, the men, when they sit in the mongedo and they make the decision, say, okay, we are all going home and we are going to go and tell the household is going to be instructed this way. And then you find other votes that have sprung up. So the men will go home and threaten the wife, say, it must be you who put in that vote. So, you know, just general suspicions. It's easy for us to sit here simply because we are able to exercise our own self-agency. There are so many women who cannot exercise that self-agency. And it's a real thing. It is about power dynamics. So you've got this authority over you that has made sure, and in fact, your ID cards are dished out on your way out, and you are told, let us remember, tukumbuke, that this is how it's going. And if you need assisted voting, you are given the person who is to make sure that you vote in a certain way. Okay. So it's very easy to sit here and say that, hey, you know, you've got your own mind, you've got your own will, but for very many women, and not just around voting. And these are the issues that we keep talking about.
And besides even that, besides them having their will in mind, but there's a case of actually the voter's card, you say, as you interact with people, of the women being taken. Is it your experience?
Yes. In ASAL counties and mostly the rural settings, you find that IDs have been confiscated. Mostly now that women want to make decisions on their own because they have candidates or running mates, they feel included. You find that men are threatened. And now they are confiscating, yes,
women are threatened. Men are threatened.
Men are threatened.
Okay.
But the decisions women are going to take.
Oh, right, I get you.
Yes, so they confiscate IDs, and you find that in rural settings, they actually take women. Even if a woman is not a genuine assisted voter, they will want the woman to claim to be literate and be assisted to vote. Okay. The man carries the ID, takes you as a woman to the voting booth, and as we are aware, vitu kwa ground ni different. As much as we are on boardrooms and IBC saying, oh no, assisted voters is monitored at the polling stations, in the rural settings, these men just get in.
Okay, and this is something we'll definitely be monitoring.
Yes.
Naitore, and I believe your microphone is now sorted, to the question of representation in public office, and we discussed it during the break. Mumepewa women rep, sisi hatuna man rep. Isn't it enough, or to some degree at least something to welcome?
Wow. First of all, it's not Mupewa.
Assuming no nasema, I'm just echoing.
Yes, because if it was, then we'd have maybe all of us who want those political positions being women reps. This is a provision in the Constitution that seeks to, that speaks to the issue of discrimination and equality. It's a quota system that allows more women to get into representation. And the reason why this provision is there, and whether it's not for women, is just because at the moment we are the disadvantage. Maybe the next 5 years it could be the men. And
because
that's why
we'll be disadvantaged. That's not a good thing.
Yes, yeah.
Someone wants to say that. Okay.
Tides can change, and I hope they do, because then that's when we realize when this the not more than 2/3 bill comes into Parliament, we see what happens in Parliament. Can you imagine even one of the members of Parliament had a bill that was proposing that the implementation of this specific provision be pushed to 2037, because for them they feel that this is a position that women are being given. All those 47 women reps who are currently in position, they had to campaign for that, It's not something that was given to them, and it's really a very wrong narrative to say that it was given. It's a provision that seeks to address something, and it's a provision that addresses men and women. It's just that now it's the women who are at a disadvantage.
Okay, because of time,
Can I weigh in on that just
and then we get to what recourse women have.
It's important that the women rep position is very important, because it makes sure that no matter what, we will have female representation at the national level. For instance, in this election, we have 3 counties in where we don't have a single woman vying for governor, senator, or member of parliament, right? Meaning that at the national level, they would not have a woman representing the issues of the people of those counties, but for the women rep position. So what the women's rep position ensures is that at least every county will have a female elected. Because, by the way, it is just that it's a woman, and it's really about ensuring that women's voices get onto the leadership table. Their role is the same as the men. It's not that it's women going to represent women's issues. Yes. It is women being brought onto the leadership and decision-making table to help them build that agency, because for a long time they've been left behind. So it's an affirmative action measure, okay? So there's nothing like men representation. We've only ever had male representation, right? So it's important to understand that and the value it brings, because by them being there, they are automatically breaking down those barriers. Where tradition and culture is saying women can't be leaders, the law, which, by the way, is an effective tool for social change, is saying, here is a woman leader. So a young girl is seeing Naitora there as her woman rep. And she knows, I can be a leader too. You know, so it's really about, it's part of helping us make those social and societal shifts towards being more inclusive and allowing for more participation in leadership and decision making.
And to be honest, watching this election and how things have changed from the last, seeing many other running mates, women representation, and other leaders.
And also a strong ticket carrying a very eloquent and strong woman.
Exactly. For that girl who's watching in the future, definitely will be, you know, emboldened to run for office and be a leader. We have 2 minutes, and I need to give you all an opportunity of telling us about any recourse in terms of women facing threats before, during, and after the election. What can they do?
What can they do? Mostly when we have threats that has to do with the GBV, they are encouraged to report. And when we have threats that are maybe not criminal but civic, we have structures down there that cater for all this, including peace committees. And most of the times we find that, and that is the reason, by the way, that we have something called Women Peace Committee Network.
That you coordinate nationally.
Previously we just used to have peace committees that were male dominated, but now we have a branch of women peace committees. So they have structures where they can approach for help, and I totally think that as much as we have all these threats, we have made progress.
All right, Naitora, to the numbers that people can actually call if faced with real threats.
I must mention that one of the biggest threats that women face during elections is electoral-related sexual violence. And this has been a recurrent feature in our elections. If you look at 2017, 0708, this is a significant risk for women during elections, whether vying candidates or even just as a voter. So should there be any cases of gender-based violence, we have a couple of toll-free lines, but one that I can mention at the moment is by the State Department. That's 1195-1195. Just dial that number in case of any cases of gender-based violence. We also
active currently.
Yes, very active.
1195.
Yes, and this number really assisted even during the COVID-19 pandemic when people were not in a position to access health facilities. The second thing that I would really want to mention is that in case of any violation of gender-based violence, please visit a health facility within a 72-hour period, because at that point there's medical management and documentation of evidence.
All right, something you're launching tomorrow as you wrap up.
Yes, tomorrow we are launching an application. It's called the Save You application, and it's an emergency alert system. And we're very happy that the National Police Service are on board with it. And it is really to address and combat issues of violence against women and SGBV. It's unique in that you do not have to call, you know, to get assistance. All you need to do is to press a button or even to shake the phone. It's internet-based, so of course it's, you know, you need a smartphone for it. But what it does is that immediately that the alert goes out, within 2 seconds, the police receive the alert, and it also geolocates you, so they know where you are and the problem, and they can respond fast.
All right.
And also other respondents. So when the alert goes out to the police, it also goes to your other respondents.
Okay.
So people will be able to know the nature of the problem and where you are, so that it helps the police to respond faster.
All right. My director will call the police on me if I continue. Daisy Amdani, thank you. We'll cover that.
Well, we welcome you. I hope I'll see you at the launch tomorrow morning.
Maybe you can mention election observation and monitors.
We really have to go. I apologize. I don't want the cops coming for me. My director Jackson is upset about it. We've kind of overrun, but thank you. This is a deserved conversation. We need to have it. Daisy Amdani, Doris Nasieku, and Naitore Nyamu, and to Irongo Houghton, who dropped the call on us. No, actually, we just had some challenges there. We really appreciate this conversation, and they all confirm. There's ladies on the panel. They will be voting. If you have the card, go vote.
And vote peacefully.